My ex's new wife stole my seat at my son's graduation. His mom can watch from the back, she laughed. My ex did nothing. After 18 years of double shifts raising the valedictorian, I stood by the exit. When my son took the podium, he didn't smile. He folded his speech, pointed at his stepmom, and said one thing that made her go pale. The usher was 19 years old, maybe 20. He had a clip-on bow tie and a name tag that said Brandon. He couldn't meet my eyes. Ma'am, I'm sorry, those seats up front are taken now. You'll need to stand back here. I was holding the program with both hands so they wouldn't shake. I could see row B from where I was standing. 2 empty chairs, 2 of them. With the white cardstock name placards, I had watched my son set down on those chairs at 8:47 that morning. When he'd hugged me in the parking lot and whispered, "Mom, you're in the second row. I saved you the best seat." The placards were gone now. Well, not gone exactly. I could see one of them on the floor under row A, torn cleanly in half. Sarah Evans in Michael's careful blue Sharpie, ripped down the middle like a receipt. "Those were my seats," I whispered. "My son reserved them." Brandon the usher actually flinched. The lady up front in the blue dress, she said there was a mix-up. She said her name was on the list. The lady up front in the blue dress. I looked. Chloe, my ex-husband David's new wife, 28 years old, sitting next to David in the dead center of row B in a cobalt blue Hervé Léger bandage dress that I happened to know because Michael had shown me her Instagram once with the kind of expression a teenage boy gets when he doesn't know how to tell his mom that the woman who replaced her was posting receipts. Cost $1,890. She turned her head slowly as if she could feel me watching. She found me at the back wall and she smiled. It was a small smile, private, just for me. The kind of smile that says, I know exactly what I just did, and there is nothing on earth you can do about it. Then she lifted her phone, tilted it 45 degrees, and pretended to take a selfie. But I knew she was filming me, standing under the red exit sign, in the back, where I belonged. My name is Sarah Evans. I am 44 years old, and for 18 years, I worked 2 jobs so that my son Michael could sit in a front row somewhere that mattered. I want to tell you about those 18 years before I tell you what happened next, because if you don't understand the 18 years, you won't understand why I didn't walk out of that auditorium when she did that. You'll think I was weak. I wasn't weak. I was strategic. But strategic looks a lot like weak from the outside, and that's part of what they counted on. David and I got married when I was 25. Michael was born when I was 26. David was a junior loan officer at a regional bank in those days, making $52,000 a year and chasing every shiny thing that promised to make him more. When Michael was 6, David came home one Tuesday in March and told me he'd outgrown me. That was the word he used. Outgrown. Like I was a sweater. He had met a paralegal at his firm. He was filing for divorce. He needed the house. Could I find somewhere else to live? He'd be generous with child support. I'll never forget the look on Michael's face that night. He was holding his Spider-Man pajamas and trying to figure out why mommy was sitting on the kitchen floor crying into a dish towel. I picked him up. I told him we were going on an adventure. We slept at my sister Claire's apartment for 2 months. Then I found a 1-bedroom on Lincoln Street, above a Vietnamese restaurant. Rent was $725 a month. Heat was unreliable. The bathroom door didn't quite close. But Michael had his own bed in the bedroom, and I slept on the pull-out couch, and we ate a lot of rice. David's child support was never quite what the court ordered. He always had a reason. A bad quarter, a new car payment, a cash flow issue. When I tried to take him back to court, his new wife, not Chloe, this was his second wife, a woman named Tracy who lasted 3 years, flooded the family court clerk with paperwork until the judge got tired of all of us and told us to figure it out. So I figured it out. I worked the 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. shift cleaning exam rooms at the Henderson Family Medicine Clinic, 6 days a week. Then I came home, picked Michael up from after-school care, fed him, did homework with him, put him to bed, and from 9 p.m. to about 2 or 3 a.m., I sewed. I had taken in alterations from a tailor named Mr. Pham, who ran the dry cleaner 2 blocks down. He paid me cash, $4 for a hem, $7 for a zipper, $20 for a full suit alteration. On a good week, I made an extra $180. On a great week, $250. Wedding season was always the best. June, July, August. Brides paid more. Brides paid in tips. I didn't take a real vacation in 12 years. I went to one wedding, my sister Claire's, and I sewed the bridesmaid dresses myself. Michael never went without anything that mattered. He went without things that didn't. He never had a North Face jacket. He never had Air Jordans. He had clean clothes I'd altered to fit, and library books, and a mother who showed up. He was reading at a 6th grade level in 2nd grade, doing pre-algebra and 4th. The Henderson Clinic's pediatrician, Dr. Linda Park, 22 years of practice, Johns Hopkins trained, the kind of woman who notices things, told me when Michael was 9, "Sarah, your son is gifted. Don't let the public school sit on him." I didn't let them sit on him. I drove him to a magnet middle school 40 minutes each way. I drove him to a STEM summer program at the community college. I drove him to robotics meets in church basements, and to a state math competition in a borrowed Toyota that overheated twice on the highway. David came to 2 of those events in 12 years. He came to the award ceremony in 6th grade where Michael won the regional science fair. He took a picture with Michael holding the trophy. He posted it on Facebook. The caption was, "So proud of my boy." He got 147 likes. He came to Michael's 8th grade graduation. He brought Tracy. They left after the photos. He came to the senior awards banquet last month with Chloe, wife number 3 by then, and Chloe got into a low-voiced argument with Michael's calculus teacher about whether she was was allowed to sit at the family table. She wasn't. It was a 5-person table and we were 5. That's David, a father in photographs, a man who came for the applause. He missed the 103-degree fevers. He missed the 2 a.m. AP calculus tears. He missed the night Michael came home from middle school with a black eye because a kid named Tyler had called him welfare boy in the hall. And Michael, 5'4" at the time, had swung first. He missed all of it. I didn't miss any of it. That's why I was standing under the exit sign. That's why I was not, despite my sister Claire's whispered urging, going to drag Chloe out of that auditorium by her cobalt blue dress. Because if I lost it, if I gave them 1 second of a scene to film, 18 years of being the steady one would be erased in 15 seconds of YouTube. I had not survived 18 years to be the punchline of Chloe's Instagram story, so I stood under the red light, and I breathed, and I waited. Here's the thing about Chloe. She didn't just show up at the graduation and steal a seat. The seat was the last move in a much longer game. I had been watching her play it for 2 years. David married her in October 18 months earlier at a $90,000 wedding in Napa that Michael was not invited to. David told Michael it was adults only. There were, per the photos, 3 other teenagers there. The honeymoon was in Italy. Chloe posted 72 photos. I know because Claire counted. Chloe was 26 at the wedding. She is 28 now. She is what magazines call a former model, which, in her case, meant 2 department store catalogs and a regional car dealership commercial, and what Michael calls a content creator, which means she has 84,000 followers on Instagram and a TikTok where she posts about being a stepmom of a teen. Yes, she has posted about Michael without his consent. The first time it happened was about a year ago. Michael came home from a weekend at David's with a strange look on his face and showed me the post. It was a photo of Chloe, perfectly lit, with Michael in soft focus in the background doing homework at the kitchen island. The caption, bonus mom life. He doesn't say much, but I see him. Stepmom life, bonus mom. Michael had said nothing to her all weekend except please pass the salt and thanks for dinner. I told him to ask her, politely, to take it down. She didn't take it down. She instead posted a follow-up about the challenges of blending families when biological mothers have boundaries. She got a brand deal out of it, a tea company. I called Janet Morales, the family law attorney who had handled my divorce. Janet is 58, 26 years on the family bar, the kind of woman who wears her reading glasses on a chain and calls everyone honey. Sarah, she said, honey, Michael's 17. In our state, a minor over 14 has standing to request a cease and desist for unauthorized commercial use of their image. Have him write Chloe a letter. Have him CC me. We won't sue. We just need her to know that you know. Michael wrote the letter. He CC'd Janet. Chloe deleted the posts. She did not, however, forgive me. I want to be clear about something. I had never met Chloe in person until that point. I had been polite about her in every conversation I'd ever had with Michael. I'd told him she was probably trying her best. I'd told him to be respectful in his father's house. I'd also told him that he didn't have to call her mom. Janet's letter was the first time, I think, that Chloe understood I was a problem. After that, the small things started. The phone number that mysteriously stopped delivering my texts to Michael when he was at David's house. Chloe had blocked me from David's Wi-Fi. The school events I'd be told had been rescheduled. They hadn't. The Mother's Day card from Michael that arrived 2 weeks late, postmarked from a town 300 miles away. Chloe had accidentally taken it on a business trip. The lost tuition deposit for Michael's summer enrichment program, $1,400, which David had agreed to pay, and which Chloe had forgotten to mail until I drove to David's house at 9 p.m. and asked for the check in person, with Claire as a witness. Janet started a file. She called it the Chloe folder. By the time of the graduation, the Chloe folder was 81 pages. I need to tell you about the morning of graduation. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I'd ironed my dress the night before, a navy A-line I'd bought at a Macy's outlet for $89 and altered myself to fit, and I'd polished my 1 pair of black pumps. Michael was already up. He was in the kitchen, in his cap and gown, eating cereal and reading something on his laptop. Mom, he said without looking up, I need you at the school at 8:30. Don't be late. I'm never late. I know, but today don't be late. He looked up at me. His eyes, David's eyes, but kinder, always kinder, held something I couldn't quite read. I love you, he said. I love you too, baby. No, Mom. I mean, I love you for everything. I know what you did. I sat down at the kitchen table. I hadn't expected this. He didn't usually do this kind of talk. Michael, don't cry, Mom. Not yet. Today's gonna be a good day. I didn't cry. I drank my coffee. I drove him to the school at 8:15. He hugged me in the parking lot and said, front row, second from the aisle, I saved it for you and Aunt Claire. He pointed at his cap. He had written something on top of it in white paint marker. I couldn't read it from below. What does it say? I asked. He grinned. You'll see. I drove home. I picked up Claire. We came back at 9:45. By the time we got to the auditorium doors, something was already wrong. I felt it before I saw it. Claire felt it too. Claire was a kindergarten teacher for 15 years before she became an assistant principal. She has radar for trouble. She gripped my arm. Sarah, she said, why is David's car in the handicapped spot? It was a black Range Rover. No placard. And why, she added, is Chloe filming us through the windshield? She was. Chloe was sitting in the driver's seat of the Range Rover. Phone up, lens pointed directly at us as we walked from the parking lot to the auditorium doors. I waved. I made myself wave. She did not wave back. We went inside. The auditorium held about 600 people. The graduating class was 218 students. The seating was reserved for for family, 2 seats per graduate in the first 4 rows, more in the back. Row B, seats 4 and 5. That was me and Claire. We walked down the center aisle. I felt people glance at us. I'm not naive about what people see when they look at me. A 44-year-old woman in an $89 navy dress, with hair I'd cut myself the night before. Claire next to me, in the only blazer she owned, holding the camera I'd borrowed from Mr. Pham at the dry cleaner. We reached row B. The seats were taken. David was in seat 5. Chloe was in seat 4. The name cards Michael had set down, I had watched him do it at 8:47, were gone. The chairs had different cards on them. David Evans, Chloe Evans. I stood there for a second. David, I said. He looked up. His face did this thing it does when he's caught, a kind of micro flinch, instantly suppressed. Sarah, hi. Yeah, there was a mix-up. Chloe talked to the school. They moved us up here. Those were my seats. Chloe didn't look up. She was scrolling her phone. Honey, she said, still not looking at me. His mother can watch from the back. She should be used to it by now. Then she laughed. It was a laugh I will hear in my head for the rest of my life. Light, almost musical. The laugh of a woman who has never in her life been told no. David did not say a word. He did not even look at me. He looked at his program. Claire's hand went around my arm like a vice. I could feel her shaking with rage. Sarah, she said, quietly enough that the row behind us couldn't hear. Let me drag her out by her hair. Right now. I will do it. I will pay any consequence. Claire, no. Sarah, she stole your seat at your son's graduation. Not today. Don't ruin this for Michael. I felt the usher, Brandon, appear at my elbow. He'd been watching from the side aisle. Ma'am, I'm sorry. The seats up front are taken now. You'll have to stand back there. He pointed at the back wall, under the buzzing red exit sign. I looked at Chloe. She looked up. She winked. That's the part I want you to remember. She winked. Then she lifted her phone and tilted it at a 45-degree angle and pretended to take a selfie, filming me. I let Brandon walk me back to the exit sign. I stood there. I did not cry. Claire did not stop shaking for 30 minutes. I didn't know that Michael was the valedictorian until the principal said his name. He had not told me. He had not told me because I would find out later. He was trying to make sure that the speech he had been planning for 3 weeks would land cleanly, with maximum effect, and he did not want me to be nervous, and he did not want anyone in our family circle to leak a single word of what he intended to do. So when the principal, a man named Dr. Marcus Reyes, 12 years in the district, the kind of administrator who actually knows his students, walked to the microphone and said, "It is my honor to introduce the class of 2026 valedictorian Michael Evans." My knees actually buckled. Claire caught me. I had to grab the wall. The room erupted in applause. 600 people on their feet. Michael's classmates stomping. A teacher I didn't know. A woman in a yellow blouse, covering her mouth in joy. David stood up. He stood up first. He clapped loud, his chest puffed out, his face lit up like a man receiving a personal honor. Chloe stood next to him, phone in hand, recording for her followers, recording for the brand deal she'd no doubt land off this, my stepson the valedictorian. And I watched her angle the camera away from me, away from the back wall, away from the actual mother of the boy at the podium. Michael walked up the steps. He did not look at his father. He did not look at Chloe. He looked straight to the back, past 600 people, straight to me, under the red exit sign. And his eyes, Michael's eyes, which I had known since they first opened in a hospital room in 2008, went cold. Not sad, not angry, cold. He said his speech on the podium. He looked at it. He picked it up. He folded it in half. He folded it again. He slipped it into the inside pocket of his gown. 600 people went absolutely still. Dr. Reyes, behind him on the stage, took a small step forward. The vice principal touched her hand to her chest. A teacher in the front row, Mr. Sullivan, AP English, the one who'd written Michael's college recommendations, actually set down his program. Michael leaned into the microphone. His voice was low, quiet, steady. I had a speech prepared. It was about gratitude, about the future. He paused. I'm not giving that speech. The room, I want you to understand this, did not breathe. Chloe slowly lowered her phone. David's shoulders went stiff. I was going to thank the people who got me here. The teachers, the coaches, my family. His eyes flicked just once to Chloe. But this morning, somebody in this auditorium did something I will not forgive. Chloe's face changed. I want to describe this very carefully because I want you to see it the way I saw it from the back wall. Her smile did not disappear. It cracked. It stayed on her face, frozen, but the muscles underneath stopped holding it up. It became a smile drawn on a corpse. David turned in his seat, slowly, like a man whose seatbelt had locked. Michael, he mouthed. Michael didn't see him, or pretended not to. He pointed. Not at the back, not at me. He pointed straight at Chloe. 1,000 heads. Actually, I counted later. About 600 heads, plus the teachers, plus the school board, plus the local newspaper, plus the parent who turned out to be on the school board's communications committee, turned in one slow ripple. Phones lifted. I want to be very specific. Phones lifted in unison, like a flock of starlings. You sit in that seat, Michael said, and you think nobody saw what you did. You think my dad's money makes you untouchable. Chloe grabbed David's arm. I could see her knuckles go white from 20 rows back. Do something, she hissed. The mic on the podium picked it up, faintly, but it picked it up. David did not move. David could not move. I have known David Evans for 20 years. I was married to him for 9. I have seen him in every kind of crisis a small-time man can have, and I have never, in 20 years, seen David Evans look the way he looked in that second. He looked like a man watching his own funeral. Michael's voice dropped lower. Before I accept accept this diploma. I'm going to tell every single person in this room exactly who you are and exactly what you did to my mother this morning. He reached into the inside pocket of his gown. He did not pull out the speech. He pulled out a folded piece of white cardstock with my name on it, Sarah Evans, in his careful blue Sharpie, torn in half. He held it up to the microphone. The auditorium's overhead camera. They were live streaming the ceremony because it's 2026 and every graduation is on YouTube, zoomed in on the torn card. I have the security footage, Michael said. I have the texts. I have the receipts. Chloe's mouth fell open. David's face turned gray. Michael leaned closer to the mic. And in about 30 seconds, this entire auditorium is going to know exactly why my father's new wife is about to lose everything. Here's what Michael knew. He knew it because Michael, my brilliant, careful, 18-year-old son, had spent 6 weeks quietly preparing for the possibility that something exactly like this might happen. He knew it because Janet Morales, my attorney, the woman who had built the 81-page Chloe folder, had 2 months earlier sat Michael down and said, "Honey, your stepmother is escalating. Be ready." He knew it because the morning of the graduation, at 8:47 a.m., he had walked into the auditorium, set down 2 name cards on row B seats 4 and 5, walked out, and then immediately doubled back and watched from the stage door what would happen next. What happened next? On the auditorium's interior security camera, which Michael, as the student body's outgoing tech committee chair, had access to via the school's media systems closet, was this. At 8:52 a.m., Chloe Evans entered the auditorium alone. She walked in her cobalt blue dress directly to row B. She looked at the 2 name cards. She picked up the card that said Sarah Evans. She tore it in half. She dropped both halves on the floor. She picked up the second card, Claire Cooper, and tore that one in half too. Then she pulled 2 new cards out of her purse. Pre-printed, David Evans, Chloe Evans. She set them on the chairs. She took a selfie with the chairs. Then she walked out. It was all on tape. Michael had a copy. But that wasn't the worst thing he had. The worst thing he had was the texts. The texts were between Chloe and Brandon. Yes, Brandon, the 19-year-old usher in the clip-on bow tie. Brandon, it turned out, worked at the country club where David and Chloe were members. Brandon, it turned out, had been promised $500 by Chloe, Venmoed at 7:14 that morning, to handle the seating situation discreetly, especially regarding the ex-wife. Michael had screenshots. He had the Venmo receipt. He had, in fact, walked over to Brandon during the processional and quietly informed him that Michael's attorney was about to call Brandon's manager, and that if Brandon wanted to keep his job, his college acceptance, and his clean record, he would tell the truth to anyone who asked. Brandon, terrified, had handed over the rest of the text thread. The text thread contained, among other things, Chloe writing, "Just make sure she stays in the back. I want her humiliated. He needs to see who actually belongs there." That was at 7:11 a.m., 3 minutes before she Venmoed him. Michael did not, in the end, read all of that out loud. He didn't have to. He held up the torn name card. He said into the microphone, "My mother worked 2 jobs for 18 years to send me to this school. She cleaned exam rooms at 5 a.m. and sewed wedding dresses until 3 a.m. She did not miss one parent-teacher conference. Not one. In 12 years. His voice broke. Just once. Then he steadied. "I'm valedictorian because of her. Not because of my father. Not because of his wife. Her." He pointed to the back. To me. 600 people turned around. I felt every single pair of eyes. I felt the heat of phones rising. I did not move. I stood under the red light and I let them look. Michael's voice came back. Harder now. 2 hours ago, my father's wife paid an usher $500 to humiliate my mother in front of this entire ceremony. She tore my mother's name off her seat. She has been recorded doing it. I have the security footage in my pocket. I have the texts. I have the Venmo. I have the receipts. He pulled a manila envelope out from under the podium. He set it on the lectern. "This is going to my attorney in." He glanced at the clock at the back of the room. "In about an hour, along with everything else my mother's lawyer has been collecting on this woman for the last 2 years." Chloe stood up. She stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. She grabbed her purse. She started moving for the aisle. That's when Dr. Reyes, the principal, 12 years in the district, you may recall, the kind of administrator who actually knows his students, quietly nodded to a man at the side of the stage. The man was Officer Daniel Wu of the School Resource Officers, 14 years on the force, 6'2", built like a wall. Officer Wu had been at the side door for the entire ceremony. He stepped very smoothly into the center aisle. He didn't touch Chloe. He just stood there. Chloe stopped. David finally turned and looked at me for 1 second. 18 years of 1 second. His face was the face of a man who had just realized that the long con he'd been running on himself, the story where he was a successful father, a good provider, a man surrounded by women who adored him, had collapsed in front of 600 witnesses. He looked at me like he wanted me to do something. I didn't do anything. I just stood there, under the red light. Michael leaned back into the mic. "I want to finish by saying one thing." He looked at his father. "Dad, I love you. I always will. But you have not been a father to me. You have been a face in photographs." The auditorium had gone so quiet I could hear the air handlers. "My mother raised me. My mother. And anyone in this room who has been calling that woman," he gestured briefly at Chloe, now standing trapped between her overturned chair and Officer Wu, "my stepmother or my bonus mom, or any of the names she has put in her Instagram captions, can stop. She is not my family. She has never been my family. And after today, she will not be in my father's family either. He took his cap off. The white paint marker on top of his cap finally became visible to the room. It said in Michael's careful block letters, "Thank you, Mom. Row 2 or row 22. You're always front row to me." The auditorium broke. I have never in my life heard a sound like the sound that came out of that room. 600 people on their feet, stomping, cheering, the whole graduating class screaming. Mr. Sullivan from AP English crying into his program, Dr. Reyes hugging the vice principal, Officer Wu, his arms crossed, allowing himself the smallest possible smile. Claire was sobbing. She was sobbing and laughing at the same time, the way you do when something has broken open inside you that has been locked for a long time. I was not crying. I want you to know that. I was standing under the red exit sign, and I was not crying. And I was looking at my son on the stage, and I was thinking one thing. I did it. We did it. He's okay. The rest of the ceremony was a blur. Michael accepted his diploma. Dr. Reyes shook his hand and said something into his ear that made Michael laugh. The graduating class processed off the stage. The audience filtered out. Chloe was escorted by Officer Wu to a side office. She would, I later learned, sit there for about 90 minutes, alone, while David stood outside arguing with the school's attorney on the phone. David did not come find me. David, it turned out, would not speak to me directly for another 4 months. That was fine. I had nothing to say to him. I want to give you the aftermath in the order it happened. The video of Michael's speech went up on the school's live stream, unedited, before anyone realized what had happened. It was downloaded approximately 11,000 times in the first hour. By that evening, it had been reposted on TikTok, X, Instagram, and YouTube, with captions like "Valedictorian ends stepmother on live stream," and "This kid just earned his diploma twice." By the next morning, the video had 4.2 million views. By the end of the week, 38 million. Chloe's Instagram account, 84,000 followers, was deleted within 3 days. Not by her. By Instagram, after every brand she had a partnership with publicly pulled out, and every comment section on every old post she had ever made became a referendum on what she had done. The tea company that had paid her for the bonus mom post issued a statement. A national morning show requested an interview with Michael. He declined. A reporter from the local paper, a woman named Carla Esposito, who had been covering the school district for 16 years, knocked on my door 3 days after the graduation. She asked, very respectfully, if I wanted to comment. I said, "My son said everything I needed him to say." She wrote it as her closing line. David filed for divorce from Chloe 7 weeks later. The grounds, I'm told, included a small detail Janet Morales had uncovered while building the Chloe folder. Chloe had, in the 18 months of her marriage, been quietly siphoning money out of a joint account into a personal Venmo and a personal Cash App. The total, when the forensic accountant, a woman named Priya Iyer, CPA, 20 years in financial fraud investigation, the woman Janet hired the week after the graduation, finished the audit, came to $147,300. David, the financial advisor, hadn't noticed. I want you to sit with that. David, who had been so concerned about his cash flow that he had shorted his son on child support for 12 years, had been hemorrhaging $147,000 to a woman who had spent it on dresses, on a $42,000 Cartier bracelet, on a series of wellness retreats that turned out to be weekends in Miami with a personal trainer named Caleb. The divorce was ugly. The settlement was uglier. Chloe got nothing. The prenup David had insisted on, at his attorney's recommendation against Chloe's loud protest, held up perfectly. She moved out of his house in August. I do not know where she is now. I do not care. The school district issued a statement that the usher, Brandon, had been removed from his role and was no longer welcome on school property. His college had been notified. He had, to his credit, written Michael a 4-page handwritten apology. Michael accepted it. He even eventually responded. He's a good kid, my son. He's a better person than I am. 3 months after graduation, Michael started at MIT on a full scholarship. I drove him there myself in a 2014 Honda Accord with 156,000 miles on it. I helped him unpack. I met his roommate. I cried in the parking lot of a Dunkin' Donuts on the drive home alone for about 20 minutes. He calls me every Sunday at 7 p.m. Sometimes Claire is over and we put him on speakerphone and the 3 of us eat dinner together over the line, the way we used to when we lived above the Vietnamese restaurant and the heat was unreliable. I still work at the Henderson Clinic, though I quit the night sewing about a year ago. I sleep more now. Dr. Park, 22 years in practice, you'll recall, actually noticed. She told me I looked younger. She told me my shoulders had come down. I didn't know my shoulders had been up. I think about Chloe sometimes, less than I used to. I think about the moment she winked at me from row B. I think about how, for that 1 second, she really did believe she had won. I think about David, who I will probably see twice a year for the rest of my life, at Michael's college graduation, at Michael's wedding if there is one, and who will spend those occasions trying very hard to pretend none of this ever happened. But mostly, I think about my son. I think about the moment he looked at me from the podium with cold eyes, and I realized with a jolt I will feel until the day I die, that the quiet, careful, kind little boy I had carried up the stairs of an apartment above a Vietnamese restaurant had grown into a young man who could level a room of 600 people with a folded piece of paper. I think about the cap he wore on stage. Row 2 or row 22, you're always front row to me. I think about that, and I don't cry. I learned a long time ago not to cry over good things. I save the crying for the bad ones, and there haven't been any of those in a while. I think about a thing Michael said to me in the car car on the drive to MIT. We were about 3 hours in. He'd been quiet for a long time. Then he said, without looking at me, "Mom, I want you to know something." Okay. I knew about Chloe paying the usher before she did it. I turned my head slowly. What? Brandon was in my AP stats class. He texted me at 7:12 that morning. He thought it was funny. He thought I'd want to know what my dad's wife was offering him. I stared at him. Michael, I told him to take the money. You told him to take the money? I told him to take the money, do exactly what she asked, and then forward me the entire thread, including the Venmo. Michael, she was going to do it anyway, Mom, with or without him. I just made sure it was on tape. I had to pull over. I pulled into a rest stop and I sat there for a full minute, staring at the steering wheel, and then I looked at my son, my 18-year-old son, on his way to MIT, and I started laughing. Not because it was funny, because I realized in that moment that the boy I had raised on rice and library books and 2 a.m. calculus had not, in the end, needed me to protect him. I had spent 18 years teaching him to be careful, to be quiet, to be strategic, to wait. He had been listening the whole time, and when the moment came, when his father's wife smiled at his mother from row B and tore her name in half, he had not panicked. He had set the trap. He had baited it himself, and he had waited for her to walk into it. I started the car back up. I pulled back onto the highway. I said, "Michael, I love you. I love you so much." He said, "I know, Mom." Then he said very quietly, looking out the window at the trees, "Row 22 was always good enough. They just didn't know."